What does habituation look like in the real world? Stay tuned. Welcome back to Psi vs. Psi, your channel for all things psychology. Now, in the past, I've made a few videos about non-associative learning, things like sensitization and habituation. I'm not going to retread all of that same ground here, but if you want to know about those things, you can check out the links to the videos in the description. Habituation is a type of learning that occurs when a response goes down after repeated presentations of a stimulus. Today, I thought it would be really fun if I could actually observe habituation in some real live animals. So this weekend, I had an opportunity to go to the beach, and of course, as always, I brought along my trusty bucket. This way, I can harass the local wildlife, like these two mussels that I found, one darker, one lighter. I think I'm going to call the darker one Captain D and the lighter one Long John Silver. Now, let's take a look at the Wikipedia page and see what their nervous system looks like. Ugh, that's kind of gross, but it's still cool. They have some nerves and things going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in a bucket, and I'm just going to see how long it takes them to bury themselves in the sand. Now, I'm kind of a big, scary guy, so as soon as I pick them up, they're kind of frozen, and they don't want to move because I might be a predator. But I walked away from the bucket for about a half hour. I came back just in time to see Long John digging his way down under the sand in the bucket. Now, every time I would walk by the bucket and he'd hidden himself under the sand, I would just kind of dig him back up and give him a little swirl. And I did this throughout the day. And most of the video from that would be really boring because just a Long John sitting there doing nothing. Captain D didn't do anything the whole day. I'm a little worried for Captain D. But right before I left for the day, I was able to get this video of Long John where I had picked him up, started the camera rolling, put him back in the water, and almost immediately he started burying himself. In other words, he didn't find me scary. He had habituated to me handling him. His response of freezing went down. Of course, I should mention, during this process, I tried to be as gentle as possible and handle them very carefully. At the end of the day, I returned them back to where I found them and bid them a fond farewell, and I knew that they would be safe and happy and nothing bad could happen to them. Oh no, Captain D! So why would you want to study habituation in mollusks like these mussels here? Well, it turns out there are a couple of reasons. One, because habituation is interesting in and of itself, and it can help us understand things like, how does a really simple nervous system engage in learning? But there could be other reasons too. I happen to find this study that's hot off the press, just came out this year, and it studies exactly what we've been doing. It looks at habituation in mollusks. Now, the reason they were studying it is because they are a research team that's worried about human-caused noise and what impact that can have on ecosystems. So you have things like boats driving by and engines and propellers and loudspeakers and music playing, and you've got all kinds of noises that humans make that can have impacts on wildlife populations. They can disrupt their ability to communicate with each other, their ability to go out and find food. All kinds of things have been shown to be affected by human-caused noise. You've got these mussels and other mollusks. This serve as a key part of the food chain, providing food for lots and lots of different animals. And so if noise generated by humans disrupts their ability to thrive, that can have long-lasting consequences across the ocean's ecosystems. So what the researchers did is they took their mollusks and they put them in a tank and they played sounds. And what they found was that initially they would clam up really tight. But after a while, repeating the sounds over and over again, they started to habituate to them. Now, the researchers are careful to say that more work needs to be done before they can confirm whether this is the case, but their studies seem to provide hope that mollusks can learn to ignore some of this anthropogenic noise. So it seems I was able to induce habituation in at least one of these little mussels that have a very simple nervous system. They don't even have a brain. But I know what you're thinking. Maybe you don't have a beach near you, or maybe you've been disallowed from spending the whole day at the beach of watching clamshells all day because it isn't quality time with the family. I get it. I hear you. Okay, so what do? If you can't go to the ocean, the good news is the ocean has come to you. What do I mean? I would bet for almost everybody watching this video, if they went outside right now and found a rock and turned it over, they would probably find one of these guys. Now, these are sometimes called wood lice or pill bugs or coccinillas. A good scientific way to describe this family of creatures is called isopods. But the cool thing about them is that they're not actually insects at all. They're actually crustaceans. They're more closely related to the lobster than they are to a centipede or something like that. Because they're so easy to find, I thought these would be a great example to try next. Now, I used a paintbrush to be extra gentle because they're a little bit delicate. What I did is I took a plastic tray and I lined it with some paper so that they could walk comfortably on it. I put my cell phone in there so we could see a timer, and I simply took the isopod and I would touch him a little bit with the paintbrush until he rolled into a ball, and simply measured how long until they were able to open up fully and turn themselves the right way up. I'm just going to measure how long does it take. I'm going to do this, say, 10 times, and we're going to see how well they do. I'm going to graph the results as we go so we can see what's happening. So I put the roly-poly in the arena, and I've rolled it into a ball using the paintbrush and started the timer. Now, every time it flips over, I'm going to stop the timer, and we're going to graph the result. Roll him up again, start again. So while we're doing this, you'll probably have a few questions about these guys that maybe I can answer. And of course, the first one on your list, I'm sure, is can you eat these little land lobsters? How do they taste? Saute them with a little butter, maybe? I don't know. Well, the answer, according to science, is that yes, they are edible. You can eat them, but I wouldn't recommend it. I can't say that I've personally partaken of the old roly-poly surprise, but there are a number of reports out there of people who've tried them. Some people highly recommend them, but most people say that it's about what you would expect, and they're pretty bitter, and it's just not worth doing. They may be related to lobsters, but they certainly don't taste like lobsters. All right, so I've done a couple of trials, and now you can see that they started out at about between 40 and 45 seconds, but a few trials in, I'm already down to 30 to 35 seconds. And we'll see if this keeps going down as we go. Another cool fact about woodlice is that there are some studies that have been done by a research group in Japan that argue that they are able, at least in some form or fashion, to be able to use tools. And basically what they do is they take a little piece of Teflon tubing that they cut into lengths that they can attach to the antenna of the isopod. The isopod can then use those extensions on their antenna to sense things like long distances and walls and edges and things around them. Now, as we keep going longer and longer, it gets to the point where it's kind of hard for me to even get them to roll up into a ball at all. They just kind of ignore the paintbrush and are just kind of running around like it's no big deal. And by the end of it, when they did roll up, they only stayed rolled up for, a few seconds. This is dramatically different from at the start when it took them, 45 seconds before they would come out and play. So this graph gives us a beautiful example of classic habituation. Once again, when I finished observing them, I took the little guy back out to the rock I found him under and let him be where he wanted to be. Hopefully not too inconvenienced by my observations. So there you have it, a couple of examples of habituation from organisms with very simple nervous systems that you could probably try yourself. But now you can see how this works. You take some behavior that naturally happens in response to a stimulus, and you keep repeating that stimulus over and over again. And you see whether after repeated presentations, the strength of that response goes down. This is one of the most common ways to get animals to start becoming more familiar with humans. For example, if you're raising a litter of feral kittens, what you want to do is handle them a lot. Initially, they probably aren't going to like to be handled. But surely enough, if you keep handling them, they will habituate to your presence and they will become more tame and more docile. And then they might actually have a chance of adoption. So what do you think? How does habituation affect your life? Leave a comment, let me know. If you want more videos like this one, we're always on the lookout for ideas, and consider subscribing to get more videos on all things psychology. And until next time, keep thinking. My neighbors saw me turning over the rocks outside. I told them not to worry. I'm a scientist.